What if I told you that you've been playing Kaze wrong this entire time? This video features the best tips and tricks to help you play the deadly ninja Kaze. Alright, so to start off this guy, let's go to talk about the ultra trait that Kaze has. Kaze has two aspects, Geisha and Ninja, that alternate her main attack and super, as well as her gadget, star power, and hypercharge effects. She starts in her Geisha aspect at the start of the battle, and uses her gadget to swap aspects. Uniquely, if Kaze is powers 1 through 6 or does not own a gadget, she will gain a special gadget that has a 6-second cooldown, which will only switch aspects. Unlike her regular gadgets, this gadget does not provide any bonuses upon transition and becomes unusable once Kaze owns any of her regular gadgets. But okay, that's gonna be for Kaze's ultra trait. Let's go and talk about her main attack, but the first main attack I want to talk about is Kaze's delivery service. In Kaze's Geisha aspect, Kaze dashes forward a short distance and then slashes in a short 2-tile range circle around her, dealing moderate damage. Like many dashing abilities, Kaze's dash will be interrupted if she attempts to dash into walls or water, causing her to slash early. Unlike Mortis and Kenji, the dash itself deals no damage. Kaze's attack also features a strike spot that initially covers a 120-degree cone at the top of the circle, and if an enemy is within the cone, they would take double the damage and the strike spot will be repositioned 90 degrees clockwise. Now, a time where I'd recommend you use this main attack is when you're playing against squishy brawlers. The reason I recommend this main attack specifically against squishy brawlers is because Kaze will have a much easier time taking them down due to Kaze needing to be up close and personal but not having a lot of health. By strictly targeting low health brawlers or brawlers that can't deal a lot of burst damage, she is going to be feasting. Now, another tip I recommend is try not to auto aim with this main attack because you want to be hitting the enemies with that strike spot. Now, no matter who you are targeting, you should try not to auto aim your attacks. You want to try and take advantage of that strike spot so you can deal that additional 200% damage. This will make a huge difference and could easily be the difference between winning or losing the engagement. This can be hard to execute since the strike spot keeps on moving, but it's just something you're going to need to learn the more that you play Kaze. Now, the reason why I personally don't really favor this main attack is because it can be pretty inconsistent in higher ranked matches. Against really good players, you probably won't find a lot of opportunities to reposition yourself so you can hit the enemies within that strike spot, especially since better players will probably have a much higher game sense. They won't let you get within range easily so you can deal damage onto them. If you're struggling with Kaze's Geisha attacks, I recommend using her ninja aspect. Now, speaking of her ninja form, let's go and talk about her second main attack, Silent Shuriken. In Kaze's ninja aspect, Kaze fires 2 knives linearly in quick succession. Targets closer to Kaze take the most damage, and targets near Kaze's maximum range take significantly less damage. Now, a time where I'd recommend you use this main attack is when you're playing against mid to longer range brawlers. Now, what makes Kaze extremely versatile and really strong is the fact that she has this ninja aspect to her kit. She has her Geisha attacks to deal with closer range brawlers, but this ninja attack gives her more range with her main attacks, and this allows her to stay engaged throughout the match. This main attack helps Kaze stand her ground and charge up her super. Now, what's pretty cool is that you can even use this main attack when you're playing against close range brawlers as well. Of course, it makes sense to use Kaze's Geisha attacks against close range brawlers because it's shorter, but you can also use her ninja attacks against tanks and assassins as well. Since you deal more damage the closer you are to your targets, this kinda insensitizes players to get closer to your targets when in this aspect to deal as much damage as possible. Now, from what I'm seeing amongst the pro scene, 99% of the time, this main attack is gonna be the better one. Due to this main attack giving Kaze more range, being more consistent because of it not having the strike zone, and also dealing a lot of damage at a close range, you might as well spend most of the match in Kaze's ninja form. It gives Kaze more versatility and makes it even easier for her to charge up her super. Now, speaking of Kaze's super, let's go ahead and talk about her first super, Fan Storm. In Kaze's Geisha aspect, Kaze throws a hand fan that creates a storm in a large 5-tile radius that lasts for 5 seconds, and that makes enemies inside unable to see brawlers or projectiles outside of the fan storm. Enemies that are caught within 1 tile of the edge of the storm will be damaged, and the damage can hit multiple times if the enemy remains standing on it. Enemies can still fire projectiles outside of the circle, but they will not see their own shots once they travel outside. Now, this super is going to be great because it's going to help Kaze just maintain control of the map. When you create that storm on the map and blind the opponents from seeing anything outside the fan storm, it is the perfect way to throw the enemies off guard and maintain control of an important part of the map. You can throw it onto the enemies and then reposition yourself to surprise the enemies by running around the outside of the storm. Now what's also good about this super is you can use it to slowly chip away at the enemy's health if they willingly stand inside of it. One of the underrated aspects of this super is the amount of damage you can deal to the opponents that are standing inside the storm. It's basically like Sandy's Root Sand star powers but on steroids. It's a good way to force the enemies to retreat and possibly finish off weak enemies for an easy kill. Now when using this super, I recommend trying to throw it onto multiple targets if you can. This makes the most sense so you can get the most amount of value out of this super as possible. Being able to blind multiple opponents, take out a huge chunk of their health, I mean it's a win-win. Even if you can't finish off the opponents, just being able to push them back and gain control of the map is good in itself. But okay, that's gonna be for Kaze's first super. Let's go and talk about our second super, Fist of the Brawl Star. In Kaze's ninja aspect, Kaze dashes a long distance very quickly. Enemies caught in her path will be marked for 2.5 seconds, after which they explode, dealing high damage. Now why I personally love using this super is because I can use it to close down the distance to my target. This super is kinda like Fang's super. You can dash a pretty far distance and travel to or through your target, which is great for a brawler like Kaze. She thrives in those closer range fights, and she can be extremely deadly when you use this super to get within range and deal all that massive damage. Now this super can be pretty useful to just deal that guaranteed damage whenever you mark up your target. No matter if you die after your dash ends, as long as you go through your target, that damage after 2.5 seconds will explode and deal huge amounts of damage onto the opponent. This super is very helpful because if you're in a tight fight but end up dying, hopefully you dealt enough damage where the mark can finish off the opponent in the end. Now kinda like with Kaze's first super, try and use this super onto multiple targets if you can. The great thing about this super is that you can pierce through multiple opponents if you can line it up. It'll only give you more value, help you cycle up your next super, and of course it's really satisfying. This will force the opponents to stay away from each other, and it'll make it easier to pick off the opponents one by one. But okay, that's gonna be it for Kaze's super. Let's go and talk about our gadgets now, but the first one I want to talk about is Gracious Host. When activated, Kaze switches to her ninja aspect and gains a 30% movement speed buff for 2.5 seconds. Now a time where I'd recommend you use this gadget is when you need to catch up to the enemies. This gadget is great when you're switching back to Kaze's ninja form because you gain that additional movement speed, and this will allow you to get closer to the enemies you are pursuing. Especially if the enemies outrange you or the enemies are far away from you, that additional speed boost can catch them off guard and cause the enemies to retreat even quicker. Now another time you can use this gadget is when you need to run away and retreat because you're in danger. Now let's say you are the one that's low on health and needs to run away. That's another opportunity where this gadget can come in clutch. Take advantage of that 30% movement speed to escape the enemies and hide so you can heal up. There's a lot of other niche scenarios in Brawl Stars where you can benefit from a speed boost, but these are the main ones that you'll more than likely come across. Now let's talk about the second way you can use this gadget in Kaze's Geisha form. When activated, Kaze switches to her Geisha aspect and recovers 30% of her maximum health. Now obviously one of the best times you can use this gadget is when you need to regain some of your lost health. This gadget is kinda like Kenji's Hosumaki healing gadget. This gadget can come in clutch to gain back some of the health so you can get back into the fight much faster. This will allow you to surprise the enemies and hopefully give you enough health to finish the kill. Now another time when you can use this gadget is when you're in a tight fight and you know you're about to die. Just like with Kenji, you can use this gadget when you're in a tough matchup and realize that you could lose the engagement. When you're taking a lot of heat or notice that you're about to die, that's when you should activate the gadget and regain some of that health back. This gadget is very much needed, especially when Kaze is using her Geisha attacks and needs to be up close and personal to her targets. But okay, that's gonna be it for Kaze's first gadget. Let's go and talk about our second gadget, Hensojutsu. When activated, Kaze switches to her ninja aspect and turns herself invisible for 2 seconds, allowing her to either retreat or ambush an enemy. Similar to Leon's super, if Kaze takes damage during the gadget's duration, her invisibility is cancelled. Now obviously one of the best times to use this gadget is when you need to move around the map very sneakily. I know I compared this gadget to Leon's super, but I also like comparing it to Kit's cardboard box gadget. You can use this gadget to reposition yourself to another bush, or if you ever need to get closer to the enemies on a map that doesn't really provide a whole lot of walls or bushes. You can never go wrong with being able to go invisible because that's one of the scariest mechanics inside of Brawl Stars. Now another time you can use this gadget is when you need to escape danger safely. Now not only can you use this gadget aggressively, but you can also use it in a passive way as well. If you're in a tight spot and need a a way to escape a lot of heat, then that's when you pop this gadget and then just juke out all the enemies easily. Just make sure you don't get hit by anything because then your gadget will go to waste. Now let's go talk about the second way you can use this gadget in Kaze's geisha form. When activated, Kaze switches to her geisha aspect and she quickly dashes 3.33 tiles forward. Now I kind of recommend using this gadget like Maisie or Max's gadgets to get closer to the enemies. Having a gadget like this where you can dash a couple of tiles is very underrated. Everybody is going to be talking about the speed boost and the health boost or even the invisibility with Kaze, but this gadget is so sneaky good. You can dodge incoming projectiles, get closer to the enemies. I mean, the possibilities are endless in ways you can utilize this gadget. Now you can also even use this gadget to escape dangerous situations. Now kind of piggybacking off the previous tip, this gadget is great to get in and get out of danger. If you find yourself in danger, hopefully the dash will get you a reasonable distance away from the opponents so you can make a safe getaway. If you're in Kaze's geisha form, you can even use those attacks to dash away like a Mortis or a Kenji. But okay, that's gonna be it for Kaze's gadgets. Let's go and talk about our star powers now. But the first one I want to talk about is advanced techniques. While Kaze is in her geisha aspect, enemies hit by Kaze's strike spot will be slowed down by 30% for 2.5 seconds. Now this star power is pretty good because it really emphasizes the importance of hitting the enemies with that strike spot. Since you can only get use out of this star power when you hit the opponents with your strike spot, you need to really be focusing on that even more. It can definitely be a learning curve at first or really throw off newer players, but it's definitely worth it because that slowing effect is deadly. Now whenever you hit the enemies with that strike spot and you have the star power activated, you gotta take advantage of whenever the enemies are slowed down. Now the good thing is that if you can manage to slow down the opponents with this star power, you might be able to take advantage of the opponent not being able to move at their normal speed to reposition yourself so you can hit the opponent with your strike spot. It might buy you just enough time to do that additional damage and get that kill. Now I really love this star power because of that slowing aspect. I mean, it's so good for Kaze. I've said this before countless times in my other videos, but whenever you are playing a brawler with some kind of mechanic that can mute, slow, or stun the enemies, it is always going to be strong. This star power is definitely no exception because being able to slow down the enemies by 30% for 2.5 seconds, I mean, that's just crazy. Now let's go and talk about the second way you can use this star power when Kaze is in her ninja form. When marked enemies are defeated, the explosion will also affect nearby enemies for the same amount of damage. Now this star power is going to be great when you're playing on control oriented game modes. This star power can be great on game modes like Gem Grab and Hot Zone because the odds of the opponents grouping up together are much higher. As long as they are within the proximity of a marked target, then they would take that same damage, and who knows, it could be enough to pressure them back or even get a kill. Now what's also really good about this star power is it gets you more value every single time you use your super. I mean, come on, being able to hit multiple enemies thanks to the explosion, it will help increase your super charge rate and allow you to cycle up your supers even easier. But of course, just being able to deal more damage with a single super is a huge W. Now why I personally love this star power is because it forces the enemies to not group up and it really forces those one-on-one engagements. In control-oriented game modes, it's a great thing if you can force the enemies into uncomfortable circumstances and make them play with a more unorthodox strategy. If you can split up the enemy team while maintaining control of the map together as a team, that will only make your positioning stronger and frustrate the enemies even more. But okay, that's gonna be it for Kaze's first star power. Let's go and talk about our second star power, Gratuity Included. In her geisha form, enemies caught in Kaze's storm within 4 tiles of the center will lose 1/3 of their ammo when the storm lands. However, enemies walking in the existing storm will not lose their ammo. Now one of the ways this star power can be useful is this gonna make it even easier for you guys to take down the opponents. If so happen you throw your super onto the enemies and they are caught within that 4-tile radius of the center, you can drain their ammo and really pressure them for a higher chance of getting the kill. Most players, especially in the beginning, won't expect to be drained of their ammo, so this could be a sneaky star power to run when playing Kaze. Now this star power can be good for newer players because it really emphasizes the importance of where you need to be placing down your super. Since the enemy must be within that 4-tower radius of the center of the storm, it will force you to aim your super in a more specific location so you can get the value out of this star power. If you aren't really paying attention to where the enemies are, or where you're throwing your super, I wouldn't really recommend using this star power. Now I don't really find this star power that valuable because one, it really depends on where you're placing down your super, but also how much ammo the opponents already have. I can't really see the average player enjoying this star power because not only do they have to strategically place down their super, but they might not get that much value anyway because it only drains 1/3 of the enemy's ammo. If the enemy only has 1 bar of ammo, it's not going to make that much of a difference, essentially making the star power kinda useless. Now let's talk about the second way you can use this star power in Kaze's ninja form. In her ninja aspect, this star power increases the duration of her gadgets by 50%. Now of course this star power is going to be great to combine with either gadget because, well, it's going to increase all the gadgets by 50%. I mean, who doesn't want to increase the duration of your gadgets by 50%, right? Whether it's the invisibility or the speed boost, you can't go wrong with having those buffs even longer. This star power is pretty self-explanatory, so let's go and move on to the next tip. Now a time where I really recommend use this star power is if you love playing Kaze in her ninja form most of the time. Now the reason I say this is because Kaze's ninja gadgets are the ones that include the increased movement speed buff and the invisibility. These are the gadgets that really matter when using the star power, so if you love playing Kaze in her ninja form, then it might be worth running this star power to make those gadgets even better. Now unfortunately, this star power is just not going to be better than her other star power, which is advanced techniques. With how broken the slowing effect is and the proximity explosions are, they're just going to be safer options that will get you more consistent kills. Granted, each star power has its pros and cons, but judging by what I'm seeing amongst the pro scene, a lot of them are running advanced techniques, and it's mostly because of that 30% slow for 2.5 seconds. But okay, that's going to be for Kaze's star powers. Let's go and talk about our Hypercharge Ancient Energy. When activated in her Geisha aspect, Kaze's Storm now deals 324 damage per second to enemies within 4 tiles of the center, up to maximum of 1620 damage over 5 seconds. This effect can stack with multiple storms. Now this Hypercharge is going to make Kaze even better for area control. It may not seem that dealing 324 damage per second is a whole lot, but it can make it that much easier to force the enemies out of the storm and back into their own spawn. Anytime you can deal additional damage to lower the enemy's health, you gotta take advantage of it. Now what's also great about this Hypercharge is that it should make it even easier for you to take down the enemies. Not only are you going to be dealing 324 damage per second with your Storm now, but you're also going to have all the stat buffs from the Hypercharge like any other brawler. That is going to make Kaze even more menacing and scarier to deal with. Considering that it's not too difficult to charge up, you gotta pressure the enemies hard no matter which form you are in. Now let's go and talk about the second way you can use this Hypercharge in Kaze's ninja form. Kaze's super dash is 30% faster, and marked enemies will be damaged instantly if the damage would be enough to kill them. Now this Hypercharge is just so broken because it makes Kaze's ninja form even scarier. The fact that you can do the damage instantly and you can dash 30% faster, I mean come on now, this Hypercharge is completely broken. It's going to be pretty difficult to dodge against a good Kaze, and the amount of damage you can deal with her Hypercharge plus the mark, yeah, you can pretty much kiss your life goodbye. Now I'm going to be sharing with you guys, this Hypercharge is pretty much the only reason why Kaze is incredibly broken. This Hypercharge is definitely going to need a nerf. It is so ridiculously strong, and it's what's going to make Kaze's ninja form even better. With how good her ninja form already is, this Hypercharge is just incredibly disgusting, and there's not much people can do to counter it. But okay, the recommended build I suggest you guys use with Kaze is running the Gracious Host gadget, the Advanced Technique star power. The first gear I'm going to recommend is going to be the damage gear. Kaze is a good brawler that can deal a lot of damage, but hey, who can go wrong with dealing more damage, right? And then finally, of course, I recommend running the shield gear. As I said throughout the video, Kaze is a brawler that needs to get up and close and personal to the opponents, right? So you need that additional health to help you stay alive and just keep up the aggression even longer. Well, anyway guys, if you guys enjoyed that video, I highly recommend you go check out this video right here.